Good morning, everyone. It's Monday morning. Good morning and Monday morning is two words that should not be together ever, but they are. And we are excited that you are here with us this morning. We have flipped things around. So if you looked at the schedule towards the end of the weekend versus looking at it this morning, you'll see, wait, that's not what I saw the other day. So we have switched some things around, and this morning we have Randolph giving his presentation. So he's going to kickstart our week. Again, just some housekeeping notes that if you have any questions, to please chat them in. And if you are watching this after the fact and not in the live setting, please go to the auxiliary.uga.edu website, click on auxiliary connections, and then survey and feedback will give you the option to leave your feedback. Tell us what we're doing good. Tell us what we're not doing so good at. Suggestions, questions, anything there, and we will respond. It can be anonymous. If you don't want us to know who you are, you just want to tell us something that we're doing really bad, but you don't want us to know who you are, that's okay. You can leave that anonymously, or you can, there's a place to put your name. So with no further ado, I will turn it over to Randolph.
Good morning, everyone. So just one other quick announcement. What we're going to do is we're going to turn off, Kathleen, if we can, turn off the videos for folks. Because once we go back to watch these recordings, particularly the YouTube live, you usually see a lot of different videos on there versus just the speaker. So in archiving these presentations, it's better for us to turn your videos off. Once we get to the question and answer phases, we'll turn those videos back on so that folks can say hello. While we're doing that, I would ask you to grab a sheet and a paper, because a number of the things that we do today, I want you to take a little bit of notes. So I see there's more people coming in. I see the chat room is moving with a bunch of good mornings. Good morning to each of you. It's Monday, it's Career Connections Week. I'm about to share my screen because this particularly has been an area for all of my work, even prior to coming to the University of Georgia and working in international development. This whole, what I call, I just work here syndrome, where people say, all that stuff you all are talking about is not for me. I just work here. All those changes and improvements y'all talking about, it's not for me. I just work here. I can't really do that. And when they ask why, well, because I just work here. So if you've ever had that I just work here syndrome, this is the perfect session for you, because I'm going to challenge you a little bit. I want to challenge, here in auxiliary services, we say think bigger. I want to challenge you to think bigger than the I just work here syndrome. All right. So here we go. All right. So let's make sure, there we go. So there's a few people on this line right now. There's a group that says, here we go again with just another career talk. And these are the people who really don't want to be here. They're probably not even looking at the screen. They really don't care. Somebody said, hey, these people may be checking to see if you participate. So just log in. And they've logged in. And they're like, okay, I'm in. I just work here. I don't need to be doing all this stuff, right? Then there's the people who are like me. And those people are like, it's another career talk. I'm looking forward to this. Now, honestly, there's very few of those people. And then there's a third group. And that third group is really like, is it 10:30 yet? Well, it's not 10:30 yet. Plus, this session don't go to 10:30, actually goes to 11. So again, if you're in one of those groups, I beg you for just an hour of your time. We've got a lot of time right now, but give me an hour to just talk you through some key concepts that may make you think a little bit about your career. And as we set out the career week, we're going to have folks who have kind of worked their ways in different aspects of the career talk to you. We have a career professional who's going to come and talk a little bit about the key components in building a career. And then, I mean, we have some really fun and exciting sessions from our own. So we have Jeff and Tyson from Transportation and Parking to talk about their own careers. We have Brian Varon to talk about how he's worked his way through dining services. So again, just stick with it for a little bit. Grab a notebook, take some notes, just jot down some key points. If you've got just one thing out of this session, and I think we've been successful. But if you ask yourself, how do you define a career? So Webster defines this as an occupation undertaken for a significant period of time in a person's life. But it didn't stop there. It says, and with opportunities for progress. And that's why I think it's really key. And so you may ask yourself, what do I have? Do I have a career or I have a job? I want you to really think about that question. If you were to ask yourself, do I have a career or do I have a job? I'm gonna let that sink in for a second. I'll play some elevator music while you think about it. No, that's Jeopardy music. That's not elevator music. Anyway, but ask yourself, what do I have? Do I have a career or a job? Now, here's the deal. I've put some definitions on the screen for you to actually think about that a little bit more. What is a job? So a job is work you perform to earn money and to support your basic needs. By the way, these two definitions come from Indeed, like the career organization. And so, think about it. Your time with auxiliary services, regardless of the unit within auxiliary services that you work in, if you're joining us from outside of auxiliary service, or if you're watching this or sharing this with family and friends, the question still remains. If you think about yourself, what do you have? You have a career, which is just a short term, or it could be short or long term, but you're working or you're performing a series of tasks specifically to earn money and support your needs. Is it just this contractual thing? I do this task, you pay me, that you have with your organization? Or do you have a career which is a longer term professional journey that's based on your passions? What do I like to do? What really tickles my fancy? What gets my gas going? What wakes me up in the morning? And what are the different levels, right? And so a job, again, it could be short or long term. It's interesting that it's both short and long term, because there are people who do some specific functional tasks and they do it for a little bit and then move on and they do something else. Or long term, there's people who doing the same tasks over and over with no thought of, I can make this a career. I really like cooking, or I really like organizing, or I really like engaging with the public. They think about it, but that's my job. We want to move beyond that and say, how do you make a career? A career might last for your entire lifetime. The key about a career includes a number of different jobs. In today's world, they call it skill sets. And these different jobs and different roles and different tasks allows you to build and develop different skill sets. Our goal in auxiliary is to offer people what they want. So if what you want is just a job, we can offer you that. But again, with our mantra of thinking bigger, we want you to think beyond having a job, and we want you to build a career with us, one that includes things that you're passionate about, one that can make you gainfully employed with benefits and all of those things, one that can allow you to be satisfied with the work that you do, be satisfied with your self-worth, have some personal pride in what you do, but also one that can expand you as an individual and not just as an employee. So again, ask yourself, what do I have? Do I have a job or a career? But then ask yourself also, what do I want? Do I want a job or do I want a career? At Auxiliaries, we'll give you a job, but we're interested in careers for you. All right. So we're going to touch a few things. So we're going to touch leadership. We're going to touch vision. We're going to touch skill sets. We're going to touch inclusive excellence. I'm just going to touch these really briefly. We'll spend a lot more time on leadership, vision, and skill sets, and we'll finish up with the inclusive excellence. Now, I know when we talk about leadership, people think, oh, I just work here. I'm not a leader. That leadership thing, that's for Brett or Brian or Don or Todd. That has nothing to do with me. I just work here. I've heard somebody many, many years ago when I was at training and development at the University of Georgia, I did these career development classes, and I had some of our bus operators come in, and I asked them to introduce themselves. And actually, there were a few that did this just a couple of weeks before we left campus. I asked them to introduce themselves, and I said, "What do you do?" They said, "I just drive a bus." Really? Well, yeah, I'm just a bus driver. Really? Yeah, that's all I do. And I thought about it, and I was like, wow, have these people really thought about what the investment that the university has in them, how much we see them in their role, how much we value their time, how much we value the skill sets that they bring versus just being a bus driver? Have these people thought about leadership, not from this hierarchy standpoint where I have to have a title to be a leader, but just in the space with which you occupy? So if I were to change the title of my presentation, it will be engaging by leading for this section, right? Strengthening your career, but by leading. And again, if you just work here, it will be difficult to put this missing piece of the puzzle together in terms of, I just work here. How do I lead? So we trying to move you away from the spectrum of I just work here and try to get you more engaged. And one of the ways to do that is through leadership. Now, there are a few things about leadership that are often untrue. And most of us are probably right here, right? So for us, we say you can either be a leader or a follower. There's no in between. You're either leading or you're following. Not often true. Well, leaders are winners. They're go-getters. They're the people who get stuff done. If you're a winner, you're a leader. Not often true. Oh, leaders are these very special people, you know? They're the cream of the crop. They do very well. There's nothing really special about leaders, except that there are a few ingredients and skill sets that they've developed over time. That doesn't preclude anybody from developing those same skill sets and mounting their experiences into something that can be used by an organization. Oh, leaders make things happen. But for me, I just work here, right? Leaders make things happen, true, but every employee can make things happen as well. Oh, everyone should want to lead. True, but in some cases untrue. In the hierarchy of organizations, there's some times where we don't need leaders. We need people who can follow through. We need people who can follow up. All right. So a way to think about it is most of the time, some of us, we engage in our careers and even we further engage individuals that we supervise as checker pieces. I want you to think about this. If you've ever played checkers, I've got a checkerboard in front of you. All of the pieces are the same. They all move the same way. They do the same function. In fact, if you look at this board, they look the same way. You know, on my side of the screen where the darker ones are, they look the same way. On the other side of the screen where the lighter ones are, they all look the same way, same specification. Sometimes we see ourselves like that. I'm just a checker piece. So I move and I just work here. I do the same thing that everybody else here does. Not true, right? What we're asking you to do, or how we're asking you to think about it, are chess pieces. So if you don't play chess, so chess is this really fascinating game where the pieces on the board each have a very different function. So they all move differently, they do different things. Now in chess, in checkers, you have to be a leader. I'm gonna go back to that checkerboard. You have to be a leader. So unless you become a king, then you get these powers where you can move in different directions. You can do several different things. In chess, it's not that way. There's different movements, there's different functions. If we were to put it in an HR term, there's different skill sets. And each of these skill sets lead to something else. And in fact, the beauty of chess is that the little things that are in the front, the ones that would just say, oh, I just work here, the pawns, they actually have a progression and they get to a point in their progression where they can become whatever they want. They can't become king, but they can become queen, which on the chessboard is one of the most powerful pieces. So let's stick with this trend of leaders versus followers a little bit and do a little analysis of it. And John Maxwell in his 17 indisputable laws of teamwork talk about starters and bench people, right? So starters are defined by Maxwell as these frontline people who they directly influence the course of an organization. They spend time in the spotlight. And then bench people are people who indirectly add value. They're often neglected, they're often overlooked. Now, in an organization, there has to be a balance of these two, right? So, and the way Maxwell talks about it, he says the success of a supporting member can multiply the success of the starter. When each person works in an area of their strength, the organization wins. So it's just not looking at these quote unquote special people who get stuff done, who are really good at what they do, but it's looking at you as an individual, moving beyond just a job, looking at the skill sets and the strengths that you bring and asking yourself, how do I make our organization stronger? How do we get a winning proposition from what I do? A strong bench gives the leader more options. The correctly placed bench player will be at times more valuable than the starter. I want you to think about this for a second. You know, we all have teams, but think about an instance in your career. It could be here at the University of Georgia or elsewhere, where you saw somebody stepped up in a way that you've never seen them work before, where they got very passionate about something that you never knew that they even had those skill sets to do. And that's what a strong bench is. So in essence, the leader and the bench can hold an equal value if they're used and placed appropriately. So managerial leadership is not the same as employee leadership, right? And the point that I'm trying to make for you is that what we call employee leadership is actually employee engagement. So going back to our title, what we're talking about is how you move beyond I just work here. I don't think that way. I don't do that way. I don't perform those functions. That's outside of my pay grade. I've heard that a lot. That's above my pay grade, right? How do we move beyond that? So last week, we had a number of sessions where we started to mold for you all this idea of what it truly means to be an auxiliary employee, right? We ended the session with how do we think bigger about our work? How do we think bigger about our organizational goals? How do we think bigger about our personal goals? This week, we're moving that ball a little bit more to look at, okay, how do you think about your own skill sets? How do you think about your experiences? How do you think about your passion? And how do you bring this to an employee leadership role that's tied into an employee engagement role? So let's keep moving. I'd love to put this little thing here. That's just a way of me ensuring that you all are following. So if you got your pen and your paper, I want you to look at this list real quickly. I want you to memorize this list. Remember it as much as you can. Don't write it down yet, because if you're writing it down, then you're cheating. All right, just look at it. Take a mental picture of it. All right, I'll give you 10 seconds of elevator music. 10 seconds of elevator music. Don't write it down. Just look at it. All right. So now I want you to write down the words that you saw. Just write down those words. Take a moment. Write down as many as you can remember. All right. I'm going to interrupt your thought for a second. I'm going to put those lists back on. And chances are, if you haven't done this before, some of you wrote or were thinking about the word sleep. Well, the word sleep is not on that list. I can go back 2 slides and show you that that's the original list. That was your thinking slide. And this is back to the list. And if you look, the word sleep is in there. And you want to know, why did I think sleep? It's because our minds are programmed to add information. And that information usually comes from a storage of information we have in the back of our head. Thinking about yourself through engagement, through leadership, and not just, I just work here, I just have a job here, I just perform tasks here, requires a shift in your thinking where you have to shake some things up. You have to shake some of those impeders, is what I call them, from your mind in order to think differently. Now, I've talked about this to many organizations, both at many units, both in UG and organizations across the country, about this intricate balance between self and organization. So once upon a time, if you think about after the World Wars, Industrial Revolution, there was a bunch of manufacturing, people went to work and they were really seen from an organizational perspective. What that meant was you come to work, you make some shoes. You know, if your goal was to put, 2,000 soles on 2,000 pairs of shoes, then that was your role. So the sole come, the shoe come, you stick it, you move. Sole, shoe, stick it, move. Sole, shoe, stick it, move. Don't really require a lot of thinking. Don't really require a lot of intellectual stuff. And unfortunately, managers and leaders at the time treated people as if they were these industrial machines. So you just shoes go, sole, shoes come, go. Work today, and as I think about it, work in auxiliary is really beyond that industrial mechanical mindset. It requires intellectual, it requires psychological balance, it requires more thinking, more cognitive processes than this industrial type process. As such, employees need to see themselves as more intellectual and cognitive portions of a community or portions of an organization, and managers as well. So if you're a manager or a supervisor or a lead on this Zoom workshop, you need to also see your people not as industrial physical labor, but also as individuals with an intellect, individuals that bring cognitive pieces to the work. Now, how does that apply to us in auxiliary? So for the person who says, I just drive a bus, I can tell you your brain is making so many different decisions in the operation of a bus on one route that my brain will be sitting in front of this computer right now talking to you. Because right now, the scope of what I'm looking at is very limited. I'm looking at the computer. I've got my coffee cup next to here. There's folks that keep dinging into my cell phone, calling me. I can ignore those things. When you're operating a bus, you can't just ignore everything. You're looking at how many students, you're thinking about, is it finals or is it midterm? And if it is, then I've got to really consider how many students are going to just randomly walk in front of the bus. I have to think about the drivers that are going to zoom by the bus when I stop. I have to enter all that information into that little computer over there. I have to make sure I'm taking this turn properly. You have to think about all these things. When you're working in a dining hall, you're working at a retail organization. It's just not, oh, I have to take this pizza out of the niche oven. No, I have to make sure I'm taking the pizza such that I don't bump somebody else and drop the pizza or burn somebody, and then I have to turn around and smile with this person, and they look like they've had a long day this morning. So I need to give them my best smile and let them know, hey, we're here for you. We're in your corner. And I may be just making you some pizza, but I'm going to make you the best pizza ever. It all moves from an industrial physical labor standpoint to an intellectual cognitive labor standpoint. And that's where we are. We see you all as human beings that bring more than just your body and your physical strength to work, but that bring pieces of yourself through which your career can be developed. So when we think about the employee engagement piece, we're asking you to be committed. Now, I'm saying we're asking because your engagement with the organization is the only thing that we can legislate. So for instance, when I look at this screen, I see that we have about 107 people online. This is great. I will tell you that we have many more employees than that. Now, here's what we've done. The organization decided we're going to give people opportunities to grow. We're going to give them opportunities to engage. We're going to give them opportunities to engage for themselves, but we also want to learn from them as an organization. So for instance, this afternoon, whereas we normally have 2 sessions, we have a 10 a.m. session and a 2 p.m. session. The 2 p.m. session this afternoon is going to be very different. The 2 p.m. session is just for a specific group of employees. So if you're a bolt-on employee on the call, spread the word that the senior leadership is going to be talking just to bolt-on employees. We want to learn about your career. We want to learn about your goals. We want to learn about some of the challenges that you've had. We want to learn about you. We want to learn about your team experience. We want to learn about how we can do things differently and the processes that we can employ. That's engagement. Can we force you to come to that engagement? We can't legislate it. But as an employee who's moving away from the I just work here standpoint and moving towards this is my organization, and this is the organization that I can love and I can grow in and I can be bigger and better than myself in, you would be there and you will share the word all around. So an employee's engagement is really their involvement and enthusiasm for the work that they do. Now there's this concept, and I think the last time NACOVS was on campus for their regional meetings, I presented the same idea. And it's called the concept of equitable exchange. So in equity theory, the way we think about it is an individual's perception of their input. There's 4 components. So the first one is, how do I look at what I'm putting into this relationship? For us, we're going to think about it in terms of the work relationship, your relationship with auxiliary services. For some of you, you may veer into more things, my relationship with my spouse, my relationship with family members. You can do that, but I still want you to use whatever method you can to get to the point that I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is 4 pieces. Piece number 1, my perception of how much I'm putting into this relationship. Piece number 2, my perception of how much I'm getting out of this relationship. So that's the first piece. And you see, I've got those in blue because those are your internal, right? Piece number 3, my perception of how much the other person or the other entity in this relationship is putting in. And piece number 4, my perception of how much the other entity or person or individual is getting out. Those 4 pieces come together and they form what's called the concept of equitable exchange. I'm going to go back a little bit. So what's the expectation from employees? Employees expect a fair return in terms of what they contribute. So if I come in and I put this much in, if I come in and I work hard, when Bolton was opening, I worked hard hours because we hadn't seen those kind of numbers before. So I was going above and beyond, right? If I put that much in, I have an expectation that my organization will give me an equal amount back. And the equal amount don't have to be how much money gets added to my paycheck, right? That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about how much appreciation I get, how much leverage I get, how much space that is created for me to make some of those decisions. So how much I put in, how much I get out. Employees usually look and they say, okay, if I'm getting a fair return for what I put in, that's called like the equity norm. So things are good. But it's like driving a car. If you're going 10 miles an hour in a wide open space, it looks like you're going very slow. If you're going 10 miles an hour between cones and blocks and all of that, that's very, very fast. So the way employees do this, in order to know whether or not they've reached equity norm or that their engagement is fair, they do that by comparing their inputs and their outcomes to those of their coworkers, right? So then they start doing social comparison. Well, hang on, I've been working really hard. Is Daryl working really hard? Well, that manager gives me a hard time every time I need time off. Does he give Daryl the same amount of hard time every time he needs time off? And so they start making these social comparisons, right? And with these social comparisons, the more that an employee feels like, I'm not really getting what I'm putting in, they begin to reduce their inputs to the organization, their productivity gets down. And there's some folks that I call stinkers. They actually start not just reducing their input, they start impeding the work of the organization. So this concept of equitable exchange really says an employee's need, the organization need, if both of those are balanced, if you see those circles, they're balanced on your screen, then we have genuine engagement. When the employee has way more than they want, and the organization isn't really meeting or getting from the employee, if the employee's needs become much bigger than the organization's need, then that's not genuine engagement. Same with vice versa. If the employee is given this much and the organization is given this much, that's not genuine engagement. The concept I'm trying to get you to understand is, in order to move from I just work here, you have to move more towards balancing the needs that you have, the goals that you have, the career aspirations you have, with the vision and the goal and the climate and the environment of the organization that you work in. All right? So I'm going to skip here for a second. And so there's three kinds of employees. So there's the engaged employees, there's the unengaged, and then the actively disengaged employees. I'll tell you, the engaged employee is really the employee who works with a passion. They're connected to their organization, they drive innovation, and move the organization forward. I want every single one of you, I want every single one of us, I should say, to be that engaged employee, because that's the way you build strong and vibrant careers. When your organization sees that you're engaged and that the challenges of the organization becomes your challenges, the successes of the organization become your successes. That's how you drive a strong and vibrant career. The unengaged employee, and we have some of these, they've never really been engaged with the organization at all. These are your job folks. I just work here. So they kind of sleepwalk through their day. They perform their tasks at the most mundane way as possible. They have no energy, no passion. There's nothing in their work that really shows that this person has even the inkling of excitement about what they're doing. Now, don't get me wrong. Remember what we said about leaders and benchers, right? There's a balance there. So you don't have to be standing on top of a table in a dining hall, singing the aria to people to show that you're engaged. It's the smile. It's the good mornings. It's the, can I grab that for you? Will that be all for your day? My pleasure to serve you. It's those things that really tells about engagement. But then there's a third group. And I referenced those third group earlier as the stinkers. Now, these group, and unfortunately, we have a number of these people in our organization as well. Most organizations do. Once upon a time, they were on the other side of the spectrum. They were very engaged. They were exciting, but something happened. Either that one coworker came in and just made them mad and angry, or a supervisor talked to them a certain way, or they went back and looked at their circles. And their circle was either bigger than our circle as an organization, or the organization circle was bigger than their circle. Now they've become actively disengaged. And what does active disengagement mean? It basically means that now they're not only unengaged, but they're actually trying to make other people unhappy at work. So they're undermining what others are trying to accomplish simply because they're not happy. One way that, a good way to call that is misery loves company. So we have some of those actively disengaged people. So engaged employees, they lead to higher service quality and productivity, higher customer satisfaction, increased sales, high level of profitability. This is where we want to be. Why, again, am I tying a connection to your career and your engagement and all of these things? It's because if those circles are equal, if the organization's goals become your goal, the organization's successes become your successes, your growth becomes the organization's growth, your ability to expand yourself as an individual, your ability to expand your skill sets as an individual becomes auxiliary's ability to expand itself and the skill sets that live within it. Then we have all of these things that are on your screen happening. That's where we want to be. But we can't legislate that. No amount of classes we can put on can get you there. No amount of inspirational talks, no amount of these things can get you there unless you decide that you want to be there. I'll show you two organizations that have decided to look at this employee engagement and getting their employees involved in a different way. So Google has this thing called the Aristotle project. And it looks at 5 areas. Do you feel safe and you're able to take risks in this organization? Can you be dependent on, and can you depend on the others that work alongside you? Is there clarity in the structure Do you know the roles that you have? Do you know the goals for both the organization and yourself? Does the work mean something to you? Is the work that we do, or is it just a job? And are you making an impact that's creating change within our university community? Google looks at it from the community, but what I've done is I've overlaid our own auxiliary community to it and our UGA community to it. So I want to ask you this. Look at those 5 areas and ask yourself, rank where you are with those areas. Right? And as you rank yourself with those areas, do it on a scale of 1 to 10. And those areas where 1 being low and 10 being high. In those areas where you find yourself ranking low, reach out to us. Remember the bubble organization that Brett Jackson talked about, where you can communicate clear across roles and structures and function within our organization. Reach out to us and say, as far as structure and clarity, that 3rd area, it's not working for me. That's a number 2. I only ranked it as 2 because I just don't understand what's going on. There's been too many changes and it's just overwhelming for me. Explain this to me. Or it's psychological safety. I don't feel like I can take risk here. I don't think I'm trusted here. I don't think that people really value my work output here. Call us and talk to us about that, because our goal will be to take that from a 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 to above those numbers and get you more engaged in the work that you do, so that your career is progressing in the way that a number of careers in our unit, in our university are progressing as well. I'm gonna give you a 10-second pause to really think about those 5 areas and just assign a number 1 to 10 on those 5 areas and where you find yourself right now. 1 to 10. All right. I'll just touch on this other organization. I want to leave about 15 minutes for comments and questions. So we've got a little less than 10 minutes of that time. Aon Hewitt, a big organization, they talk about their engagement in these terms. And I want you to really ask yourself, how would you stand in terms of these? So Aon Hewitt says that employees who are engaged, they say, they stay, and they strive. An employee who's engaged speaks positively about the company to their coworkers, their clients, their friends, just about anybody that they meet. I can tell you, one of the greatest things that's happened to me in my lifetime was having to work for auxiliary starting January 2nd of this year. Anytime somebody asks me, how do you feel about, that role? And people know I've been in several units at the university. I tell them I am alive. And I'm alive because of the people who I work with, because of the people who I work for, and the environment that I work in. So is it always an easy day in auxiliary? Absolutely not. We all don't make it easy. But what I will tell you, is it always a day that at the end of the day, when my wife asks me, how was your day today? I can say, you know what? We did some good work today. I feel good about my contribution to the team. We have a fascinating team of people. I can say really positive things about my organization because I'm connected to my organization. Employees who are engaged, they stay. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Employees who are engaged see themselves as the future of the company. So they're not thinking, how do I jump ship and go somewhere else? And there's nothing wrong with that in building a career. I've done that in my time, where in building my career, I need particular skill sets, and the jobs and opportunities that get me those skill sets, I go after. But I've always done these things within the space of the University of Georgia. Why? Because as a bigger university, I love the work environment here. Auxiliaries, remember, we're trending to become a $110 million organization with a number of different units. So the stepping stones, as we've talked about last week, gives you an opportunity to try and test these different areas of your passion. We keep you, hopefully, we keep you engaged, we keep you here, we keep you contributing to our overall work, but you get to build these skill sets and you stay. The third piece is that employees who are engaged, they strive. They feel motivated to put the extra effort for the company. This morning, most of you know it's payroll. It's payroll day today, not payday, but payroll day. If you don't know, we're at the back of the scenes. We have these days that we've got to get some stuff done, and it's got to be in at a certain time. So we woke up this morning and had a number of different challenges, both with payroll and with these sessions. And guess what? We were able to call team members and say, hey, we need you to fix this. We need you to take care of that. We need you to take care of X. And being able to call them and being able to be comfortable that they're going to strive tells me that those team members that we were able to call upon are engaged in that. They're striving to keep our quality standards to where they are. All right. Let's skip these. So we've talked about leadership. We've talked about, second here, we've talked about a number of things. Let's quickly just touch vision. Right? I'm going to skip this just in the interest of time. So most of you may or may not know the vision statement. That will be a test that I will leave, the mission and, well, the vision of auxiliaries. If you don't, go to the auxiliary site and look it up and ask us as many questions as you can in your fireside chats. Remember, this evening, we'll be doing a fireside chat. This afternoon, we'll be doing a fireside chat with the auxiliaries leadership team and the team members for Bolton. Every day this week and next week, we'll have a different group that we're doing a fireside chat with. So if you did not see an invitation for a fireside chat for you, just keep looking out for it. And one of the days between now and the end of next Friday, or the end of next week, you'll get an invitation to talk to Robert, Brett, Alan, and Brian, the 4 top leaders of our organization. But again, if you look at the vision and you say, I don't understand what that is, feel free to ask those questions in the fireside chat. The point here that I'm making, let me go back, I'm sorry. The point that I'm making is that the mission or vision statement, don't see a distinction between a person who's a leader and a person who's just a contributing team member. Why? Because again, as we said, each of those people, regardless of their role, contribute in a significant way. So differences exist in functions and roles and implementation. And in my last session, I talked to you about how our job descriptions are similar. I wanted to chat real quickly. I skipped that on the slide because I want you to ask, let's go back to it for a second. I want you to ask yourself, how do I process information? And how do I implement information? Am I a what do I need to do person that wants that information before I move forward? Am I a why do I need to do this? Am I a who actually do I need to talk to about this? Or how or when or where do I need to go for more information? Ask yourself, how do you process a lot of what we're talking about here? Because it will be the first step that you take in moving from a job to a career, in moving from a I just work here to I am an employee leader within this particular organization. And we're willing to meet you right where you are. So if you're a why person, we're willing to give you the why where possible. If you're a what person, we're willing to give you that what where possible in those fireside chats. I want you to also ask yourself, so grab your pen and paper real quickly. I'm almost there, just 2 more minutes before we move to questions. I want you to ask yourself, again, ask yourself about what are the skill sets that are needed of an auxiliary professional. And I'm being very broad here and saying an auxiliary professional, because our work, we do different things. We perform different functions in our work. So you can just substitute auxiliary professional with your role and what you actually do within our organization. Ask yourself, what skill sets do I have? So it's a current inventory of where you are now. And skill sets could be anything. A skill set differs from a skill in this way. So a skill may be one thing that you do. So, I like to talk. I like to talk, right? That's a skill. Some people don't, my wife don't think that's a skill, but we'll stick with that's a skill. It becomes a skill set when I say, I like to talk to people and I'm really good at engaging with people and taking complex information that I receive from people and break it down and communicate it in a way that folks can understand. Then I've created a skill set. So ask yourself, what skill sets do I possess? First step, what skill sets do I possess? The second step, ask yourself, what skill sets do I need to develop? I may have seen some of those skill sets, in different people. I may have, watching TV and saw a skill set or a skill that I thought, you know what, in my line of work, I need to be able to do that. So what skill sets do I need to develop? And then ask yourself the third thing, what are the skill sets of the people around me? Why is that important? It's important because all of us can't have every single skill set. No, that's why we're on teams. And there may be skill sets that other people are really, really good at, that we build that capacity to be good at that, and we utilize that in them. There's skill sets that we're good at, that we're continuing to contribute those skill sets to the team. But ask yourself these three questions. And when you have these professional conversations, either through the fireside chat or when you contact us on one-on-one professional conversations, we can walk you through these processes, and we can walk you through how do we develop the skill sets you don't have, and how do you utilize, well, we can walk you through how do you really polish and use and exemplify the skill sets you have. What can we as an organization do to help you develop the skill sets that you need? And how can we as an organization provide you opportunities to not only see, but utilize the skill sets of the people around you? All right. So I'm going to stop here just in the interest of time. We are at 10:46 right now. I do want to get some of the questions that are out there. Again, this is just setting the stage for you to think beyond, I just have a job. I just work here. I just drive a bus. I just serve food. I just help people park. I take people money at the counter. It's beyond that. It's looking at us as an organization. It's looking at ourselves, the various skill sets we bring, and how as a team we contribute to things that are bigger than ourselves. So I'm going to stop here. I'm going to turn things back over to Catherine, and take whatever questions that we have.
All right, Randolph. So from YouTube, we had one that was, so what you're saying is that we shouldn't look at our jobs as it's just a job. We should look at it a little deeper, but not everybody has that attitude. So what do you do with those type of people?
All right. So I'll tell you what we're good at as human beings. As human beings, we're extremely good at diagnosing stuff in other people. So for the person who's asking that question, I don't want you to think about what other people think about. I want you to actually think about you. So if you always just see your job as a job, and you say, you know what, I want to think about my job differently, connect with us. Again, our bubble organization, we've taken it from this to this. Talk to somebody. There are a number of professionals in our organization that can walk you through what it means to be a contributing member of our team. It doesn't have to be your immediate supervisor. It doesn't have to be their immediate supervisor. There are people in our organization. If you fill out that form that I had up, I'm going to share my screen again so you see it. If you ask yourself, what skill sets do I possess? What skill sets do I need to develop? What are the skill sets of the people around me to move myself from having a job and I just work here into building a career? There are some of us who can sit with you and we can really take what you've done and those experiences you've had, add to it through opportunities that the organization is currently making available for you, and then move you towards thinking differently. So you have our information. We have our numbers posted. We have opportunities for you to sit and have these professional conversations. So if you're talking about yourself, we'll be more than happy to sit. If you're talking about other people, I'll pull the curtains back a little bit and say, let's not really think about what we need to fix for others. Let's think about how do we become contributing members and engaged members of our organization.
And along to that line, saying that they're worrying about you, fixing you, and not worrying about the people around you. How do you, as the employee that is trying to do better, how do you deal with those individuals? What's the key to worrying about yourself?
Again, I'm not going to pull that screen back up, but worrying about yourself, and let's not use the word worrying, but focusing on yourself really means looking at the three areas: skill sets I have, skill sets or experiences I have. Again, we're talking a career here. So moving from a job to a career, what have I done in my lifetime? Um, I used to sit, and I'm still available to sit with people. And what we did was we did a master resume. And what a master resume is where you take all of your skill set, everything that you've done, every experience, and we put it in a resume. We're not worried about formatting. We're not worried about anything. We're just throwing it all in the resume, right? And then I actually sit down and ask people questions. So I'll give you an example. I had a lady who, she was a business manager here at the university, and she was interested in looking to do something different. So actually, she was an admin associate, and she was looking to move to more of a business manager role because she felt like that was the next step in her career trajectory. So we did a master resume, and during the course of that, I was asking her, so what have you done? You know, what are those things that we can add on here? And she was like, well, you know, I used to manage a bar slash restaurant in Decatur. And it was a very popular bar. It was a family business. My father ran it before. I was like, okay, um, what did you do? She said, I did everything. She was like, what does everything mean? And this lady went on to explain to me all these different things. So she was the cook, she was the server, she was doing bookkeeping. I mean, she was doing ordering supplies, she was doing just about everything. So we took those and we put them on the resume. Why? Because we could develop a business manager resume that shows skill sets and experiences from something she's done before and bring it in. Again, there's nothing wrong with having jobs. What we want to progress is that the jobs that you have lead to skill sets and experiences that formulate a part of a career that's progressing towards something. So by the time we did a resume that was focused on her business manager skill sets, she was really happy. We didn't have to make anything up. I never do that. If you come to me to talk about your resume, we're not going to tell stories about it. We were able to move from skill sets and experiences she had that she had buried, the things that we could utilize for the place that she wanted to go. So in terms of working with people and getting people to think individually differently, we'll start from mining up those skill sets that you already have, and then asking ourselves, what is it that we need to add to that? And in adding, it's both the responsibility of you, the employee, but it's also the responsibility of us as an organization. And I know I can tell you this organization is taking those opportunities very seriously. Any
So
other?
my teammates in the house here saw a squirrel or something, who knows. So Max made a wonderful statement, and it was, Max, you must have been reading my mind, because it was almost verbatim, which is kind of scary. But what Max said is, sometimes we need a wake-up call to make us realize how fortunate we are. On a positive note, I would like to think we have team members who might be unengaged that will become more engaged, realizing they are still being paid through this crisis and will still have their job when this is over. And that was reading my mind, Max, reading my mind.
Can I make a quick comment on that? Because one of the things that I had an opportunity to do just before we left campus was go and talk to some of the dining teams that were leaving. And that was a point, Max and others, that I really stressed. What I will tell you is, if you've ever questioned our organization's commitment to you, so our organization cycle or circle, I don't want you to question that now. There are people behind the scenes, both the leaders of our organization and the other people behind the scenes that you may not see or engage with often. Their commitment to you is the strongest that I've seen in any organization that I've worked in. It empowers me, it fuels me to do some of the things that I'm doing to bring my skill sets. But if you've ever questioned the commitment to our circle, you have to understand that that is really, really, really powerful. Now, remember, to whom much is given, much is expected. So with the commitments and the investments that we're making in every single employee, when we get back to campus, what we want to see, what we're hoping is this sustained, not just a 1-week engagement where we're excited to be back on campus, but this sustained engagement over time. And I'm not saying you won't have hicks in the time, but when you have hicks, bubble organization, contact us and we'll get you refueled. We'll answer the questions. If it's a what question, we'll answer a why or when or where possible. We'll answer those questions so that we have sustained engagement and commitment and inclusive excellence beyond. By the way, I'm going to share my screen again, Catherine, because I need to go to that last slide in my presentation, because that last slide talks about inclusive excellence. And I want, let's see if it doesn't go, I remember what it was. So my computer don't seem to be moving. But inclusive excellence, if we look at it from an auxiliary perspective, it's not a mandate from Robert Holden. It's not an initiative from Brett Jackson. It's not a piece of paper or a document or thing on the wall that says we're inclusive, we pursue inclusive excellence here in auxiliary. It's a commitment. It's a commitment from every single employee to treat every single individual that they come in touch with as if we were serving Jerry Moorhead. It's a commitment to be great team members. It's a commitment to go beyond ourselves. And it's commitment to be a part of something that's bigger than us. It's commitment both to ourselves as individuals, to expand ourselves and grow and build excellent and vibrant careers. But it's a commitment to work towards building an excellent and vibrant organization in auxiliary. So I couldn't be more proud of who we are and what we've been able to accomplish during these times. But when we get back, and we will get back, I believe Max and Catherine and some of the other texts that I see coming in, that we will have an organization that's bar none, and we will set a model for what auxiliary services and service to universities communities should look like. And I'm really grateful to be a part of your team and be a part of somebody who would work alongside you over the course of time. Did I have any more? Got 3 more minutes.
Yeah, so is it the supervisors or management's responsibility to motivate and create a positive environment and treat their employees with respect? But if they don't, and it causes problems or causes an employee to become unengaged and create a caustic environment, is it up to management and supervisors to fix the problem and come up with solutions to fix the problem? And no, is that almost on them?
So that's a good question. And that, I would say, is a very loaded question. And I'll tell you why I say it's a loaded question. Again, in my line of work, I've seen some of the most fascinating things that people don't pay attention to. So have you ever see a job description that lists all the things that they didn't want from the last person in this new job description? So that question that I hear, it's almost one of those type questions. Here's my answer to you. My answer to you is that it's the team's responsibility. Every member of the team has engaged. Now, will we have stinkers? Absolutely. But then it becomes the team's responsibility to make the stinkers, the abnormalities, and stinkers will not remain in our organization. We will work hard to keep ourselves engaged. But stinkers, they're an anomaly. And our goal is to make sure that that will be not the norm. So it's the team's responsibility, not the supervisors. The supervisors have a bigger role by their leadership status? Yes. But again, every team member can be an employee leader without having a title. And that's the point I want to make to you. We will hold the managers. I'm laughing because somebody said, what if the stinker is a department head? Then we need to work very hard with that stinker, because again, Good leadership really drives the team, but you can have the best leader and don't have a good team, and you're still not going anywhere. It's almost like, so I love cars, and I look at cars online. I would go to a dealership and walk around. A good leader without a good team is like having a Ferrari with no tires. It's going nowhere. You can sit there and look at it and you can say, I have a great car. Yeah, you have a great piece of junk sitting in your yard. It's the same thing. 4 tires does not a car make. So a team without a good leader is still going nowhere. It has to be this combination. So can the team leader be the one who can influence and motivate and do all of that? Yes. My argument is that employee leaders can also do the same with people who are both at their level, below their level, or even above their level. I will tell you, in my career at the University of Georgia, I haven't always been a leader, a team leader, but as an individual contributor and as an individual employee, those tasks and responsibilities that I were given, I tried to do them with the utmost professionalism so that I could be a part of a bigger team and contribute to the excellence of that team. So long answer, the short answer is it the leader's responsibility? Yes, but it's also the teammate's responsibility to build an engaging environment.
To the question of when you're asking why, the why question.
Mhm.
Oftentimes it's perceived as questioning a decision, whereas the person may just be seeking information. How do you get managers and leaders to understand the difference?
So a part of what we're going to be doing over the course of the next couple of months would be to really also engage our managers and leads and supervisors in a way that they understand what you saw on the screen, how people get and want information. There's nothing wrong with a why question. So if you're a leader or a manager, this for me, there is absolutely nothing wrong with a why question. People who ask why or what or how, all they're trying to do in most cases, they're trying to reestablish some sense of stability for something that's changed for them. And the way to do that is by asking questions. So the why question, there's nothing wrong with the why question. But what people have to understand is sometimes they're looking in a room through a keyhole. And if you look in the room through a keyhole, you may see some stuff in the room, but you don't have the fuller picture. And managers can learn to say to people, hey, I can't tell you the why right now, or what you're looking at isn't exactly the fuller picture, but give me some time, and at the appropriate time, I will give you a response to that. Now, if it's not something that it's inappropriate to share at the time, and if it's something that it is appropriate to share at the time, then take a step back and provide that why and provide that greater vision, right? And allow your employees to think bigger about where we're going. Because guess what? They may be adding to whatever initiative that's happening. They may be expanding and contributing based on their skill sets and the like. So the why questions, the what questions, the how questions, they're never bad questions. If there are opportunities to answer them, and if it's appropriate, answer them. If it's not appropriate at the given time, say, that's a great question. I can't answer it at this time, but I promise you, as soon as I'm given the green light to do that, I will make sure I touch base with you and answer that. It's not, a why question is never an act of insubordination, or should never be. And if it is, it can be called out. But we're going to start calling stinkers out because we want to make this organization its best.
And also, we never know who may be looking up to us in a position, to want to arrive at that same type of position. Then they may be watching us, and so we're setting an example, even to our students, and to looking at an entry level position. That's even a valid thought there. There's been much love, Randolph. You'll be able to see all the chats that have come in. That much love and appreciation for this session. It was a great start to our Monday morning. and has been very much appreciated. I made my own notes over here. So thank you so much.
Can I just quickly say, hey, again, what we're doing now isn't for us, it's to build all of us as a team of people. Give us feedback, participate, get your posses and your buddies and everybody to participate. We want to build a great organization and we can't do it without you. And so bring people on board and let's get started. This week is about your career, so start thinking about your career. We'll send our emails out in the next email that we send. We'll send my phone numbers and other phone numbers out. Feel free to reach as you think more about moving from a job, moving from I just work here to building yourself a vibrant career with auxiliary services. But thank you all for the time, and it's been a pleasure serving each of you. And I look forward to many, many more acts of service towards this wonderful team of people.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. It was so good to see everybody. And we look forward to seeing everybody again tomorrow, if you're not part of the Bolton conversation this afternoon. Bye, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.